So yesterday we were opening the theme of longing, longing and belonging, the inner longing as a feeling, and we also did a lot of exercises in deep relaxation, becoming more relaxed than our habitual, normal relaxed. Another layer. In this we are already moving not with the mind but with feeling. And what I hope became clearer and clearer is the more you move with feeling, the less judgment has a grip. Like, we shouldn't be in longing, we shouldn't be longing, we shouldn't be needy, we shouldn't be needing. And the more also that judgment loses its grip, the more the sense of separation disappears, the sense of being a separate person. So it's not really anything to be ashamed about to feel a longing when we're born into a big field of longing. And this allowing of the longing is one way to enter allowing the beloved. Because when we take off the me, and you take off the thing which you're longing for, the feeling of longing can feel very much like the feeling of loving. But loving in a way that it's not trying to get something. So we began very much from the individual entry point of the longing inside ourselves and in expanding that to a shared longing, human longing. This is a movement like this. It's in a way we also said it's like a prayer. As if we're saying, where is the beloved? Where? So in a way we're calling into the emptiness. Where are you? To our God, to the depth of heart, to the depth of one soul. So in a little way already what's happening is the individual being is looking for the big being which it's part of. It's kind of lighting up, like opening up, getting allowed. And of course, the entry point to the big being can only be through the being inside ourselves, the sense of who we are, the feeling of who we are, without a name, without a place, without a time, without labels of any kind, just that essential feeling of usness, of you-ness, with its layers of depth. And the deeper we can relax, I'm getting to that point. The more deeply we can relax into the individual being, which is in a way very vulnerable. Not clear why, because it's vulnerable. It feels like it needs to be protected. And we do protect it with our minds and with our thoughts and with being a person, and because it's so receptive. it doesn't protect itself. It just is. You are. You just are. It just is. But the more deeply we relax, the more we're able to move. This kind of opens like a flower in a way. The suit of armor, the plates fall off, because in relaxation it becomes clear we don't need them. So we're searching and searching and sniffing here and sniffing there for the beloved. Today it's really what we want to do is move into the other side of this and to suggest that the beloved is totally alive, and it's calling us. It's calling. We are saying, "Where are you? Where are you?" And it's saying, "Come. Come." It's calling us. So, how do we hear the calling? How do we relax deeply enough or become comfortable enough in the miracle of being here, human, physical, to let the calling penetrate us to such a depth that the answer comes from the same depth, or that the calling itself dissolves because the beloved becomes clear. We begin to see through the eyes of the beloved, to hear through the ears of the beloved, to touch with the feeling of the beloved, to smell the subtle energies of the beloved. Because when we talk about this, we're not talking only about the physical dimension. We're talking about more subtle dimensions as well. In the sense that on the physical, we can become deaf and blind and unfeeling to the beloved. But in the beloved, the physical comes to life.
Could you repeat those last two sentences? Interesting.
When we're talking about opening up to the beloved, we're not talking about only the physical dimension. We're opening from the physical towards the more subtle dimensions, which are beyond duality, beyond the physical layers of form. We're opening up to the more subtle dimensions. So it's, from the physical perspective, there can be no beloved sometimes. But the other way around is not true. From the beloved perspective, the physical is totally included. It comes to life. It's part of. It's the same with the senses, with the physical senses, which are the organs of being here, the organs of consciousness. We can go just using them with the vulgar dimensions, with the physical. The outer touch, the outer sight. So just with the physical senses, we have our a way to relate through the physical senses, which can be only physical, only relating to the outer world and the vulgar more. But if we move to the subtle senses, we open the inner. For example, when you turn outer to inner, it becomes subtle already. So if you open the inner feeling, the inner listening, the inner vision, the senses go both ways. Then the physical comes more to life, and the other senses come more to life. So it's really, really worthwhile to begin moving with the allowing factor, the opening factor, to begin in the here and now, because even all the layers of the senses, the physical senses, are in the here and now. We can't touch something later. We can't hear something before we hear it. It's always now. And the here and the now are the entry points to the non-physical layers. And of course the senses are ultimately receptive. We listen to the call. Even we listen to our own being to hear the call there of a greater merging with a big being, a greater degree of letting it happen.
So, when you look at this calling, this is not a calling from outside.
Only.
In the first place, it's a calling from the inside. So what Georgi brought forward is that receptivity, to be receptive, is really, really, really important. So that's why often the way to the beloved is a way which is moving through meditation, through silence, stillness, emptiness. And an opening up in a way that we kind of move out of structures of either or into structures of and. There's one thing when you look to the whole dimension we call the beloved, which is not there, and that's exclusivity. It is all inclusive. It's unconditional. So nothing is excluded. And this unconditional aspect is really, really, really important to understand. Unconditional means all inclusive. There are no conditions. There is no judgment. So The moment we start inside ourselves and as a reflection outside ourselves to exclude, we lose connection. So when we're talking about the call of the beloved, it's an all-inclusive call. It will not work this bit, I open up to it. This bit I kind of move with. Another thing which is really, really important to understand is that we all had experiences in life that, and if you say it in this language or another language, doesn't matter so much, but that we were in touch or heard the call or had an experience of the beloved. That we had an experience of feeling unity, openness, that we felt ourselves as to be whole in a situation and connected. That we had an experience of homecoming inside ourselves. That we felt deeply connected through the heart. And often when we looked at those experiences, there is a lot of light moving with it as well. And more often as that we have these experiences, we deny the experience. There is an opening, there is a possibility, and then we say, not right now. Not yet, not right now. First this. Sorry, I'm doing the dishes now. Or, sorry, I'm so angry right now, I cannot kind of open myself up. Sorry, I'm too insecure. Sorry, I'm not good enough. Or sorry, the world is not good enough. Which is practically the same. So, in a way, often how we are moving is that we exclude part of ourselves. And again, I try to explain this. To exclude part of ourselves is something which doesn't work. When we kind of, move back into the dimension of opening up to the beloved, and looking through the eyes, hearing through the ears, feeling to the heart, smelling through the nose, tasting through the mouth of the beloved. It's the whole package. And then something really beautiful is happening. That is everything which is not ours, everything which is not real, everything which is pretense, just will fall off. It burns by itself. It will fall off. It's not needed. So, if we are in a conflict with our ego, if we are in a conflict with any pretense or anything inside ourselves we feel it's not totally real, or with authority issues or whatever, it doesn't matter. What is not yours of it just will fall off. It will transform by itself. The difficulty sometimes is that we have more belief in what is the pretense as what we really are. We have more belief in what we build up as wannabe, have to be, as what we really are. And again, when we ponder this a little bit more deeply, when we look a little bit more deeply into this, what we see is that we kind of build this structure out of the longing to belong, to be part of. We start to pretend. We start to separate. We start to separate ourselves from other people. And we start to identify with how we separated ourselves. And how we separated ourselves becomes us. That's who I am. And when you look to that, that is who I am. Is that really you? Or is that what you maybe want to be? Or is that maybe what you hate to be? And the more we kind of move in this kind of layers, the background of it is fear. The background of it is a deep feeling of not feeling safe. It's fear. And fear is producing stress. So the way back is a way of relaxation. Allowing yourself to relax more deeply as you're used to relax. Allowing yourself to rest inside yourself. The main key is inside yourself, in the depth of yourself. As in each of us is the home of the beloved. In everything what's living is the home of the beloved. And we tend only to recognize in another what we know of ourselves. So, if we completely lost touch with the beloved inside ourselves, it's very difficult to recognize it outside ourselves. So the difficulty to recognize it outside ourselves, to recognize that something like this exists, that it has a value. That it's worthwhile investing in. This is only possible when at least we have some glimpse or some feeling with this inside ourselves. So, if it's true that the beloved is living inside ourselves, if it's true that the beloved is not our ego, but our ego is a reflection of the beloved, so it's also our ego. It's not our person. Our person is a form given to it. But it's also our person. It's behind that. It's in the area of pure being. Not in the area of form. So, if it's inside ourselves, then the quickest way is to relax, basically, inside yourself. To open up for something which is always has been there. Always was there. As children, we were in connection with the beloved. We were there. We are absolutely able to form a person, to form a personality, to form an ego. When we are in the beloved, it's not an either or, it's not exclusive. Only we lose our belief in that our ego is the ultimate. That our person is the ultimate. that our individuality is the ultimate. So, looking back, so how come that we lose this connection? If it was there for all of us in our birth, when we were there, how come we lost this connection? What happened? How come that we all went into the suffering of separation? Loneliness. How come that we all went into this pain, this suffering of not belonging? What is this cruelty, this engine behind the separation? What we call rejection. How come that we believed and that we believe in rejection? That we take rejection as something which is serious, is telling something about you. That we lose our receptivity, our ability to listen, our ability to feel. Because we're so running so hard to be okay, not to be rejected, to all the time kind of do. Act. Show. And hardly sometimes connected with how we act. Just act according to what we think will impress others. Please don't reject me. I'm okay. You know, if you have a dish and you eat spaghetti bolognese, you can say I like it or I don't like it. So if I don't like it is a rejection of the spaghetti bolognese, and the spaghetti bolognese will burn in hell for the rest of its eternal time, it's kind of horrible when you think about it. Feel separated, is not belonging, is not part of. But even if we dislike, have an aversion to spaghetti bolognese, it still exists. It's still there. It still has its form, its smell, its taste. The spaghetti bolognese doesn't change if we like it or not like it. So are we really able to reject? What is rejection? Rejection is a kind of dislike. And when you look to the root of rejection, what do we reject? We reject especially what we dislike inside ourselves. It's basically about ourselves. So, if we reject the spaghetti bolognese, you have to kind of really look at the spaghetti bolognese inside yourself.
Nou, en bedankt.
Niet zo makkelijk.
Wat?
Oh, ik zei dat is een zoekplaatje.
Het is een zoekplaatje, ja.
Elke keer als je afgewezen wordt, dan zie je een bord spaghetti voor je.
If we have to reject anger in another person, it means that we have an issue with anger inside ourselves. If we reject the appearances of another person, that means that we have an issue with our own appearances. If we reject the behavior of another person, that means that we have a difficulty in the freedom of to behave like maybe we really would like to behave. We have a problem with our own behavior. If you are totally free in your anger, you can accept it for what it is. You don't need to reject anger in another person. You can put borders, that's something else as rejecting it. If you have no problems with your own insecurity, you don't need to reject insecurity in another. If you are able to contain your own fear, you don't need to reject fear in another. You know, when I say it like this, it's so incredibly logic. At the same time, this whole conflict, around being is the inner core behind this. The beloved is living behind this whole realm, this whole illusional realm we build around rejection. And to say it in a different way, it's not Sunday, but I start to preach.
It's Jewish Sunday.
Shabbat. When you reject a part of yourself, when you reject another person, you reject the beloved. You understand it? You create a separation. If you create a stranger, you are the stranger. If you create a difference between the inside and the outside, you're the one who is different. You're the one who's ruptured. So all of this, when you look into it, is coming forward from different, or giving us different levels of stress. This is stressful living. This is what we called before survival. It's stressful living. It's really, really, really stressful. And these are the different layers of stress, kind of, when we start to relax inside ourselves and open up again and become receptive again in a way that we're able to hear, to feel, to taste, to smell the call of the beloved. These levels of stress we meet. And the only thing what you need to do is just kind of allow it and let yourselves think through it. There is no way we can work for this except in a way as opening up and relaxing more. There is no way that we have to have a perfect life to deserve this. This is a lie. You will not get it in this way, as something which is to be gained. You cannot gain this. You can only open up to it. It's not a reward. It's your birthright. So it's not a reward for good behavior. There is no conditions. It can be a reward for bad behavior. If this if this opens you enough and relaxes you enough to let be what is there already, it will work. Most of the times we get more tensed by bad behavior as that we get tensed by good behavior. But what I try to say is that it's not a reward. It's not something we can earn. It's not something we can reach by working very hard in a way of trying and trying and trying and trying. It's something which comes forward by relaxation, opening, moving into areas of yourself which are home. It's not by learning things. It is by letting things go. We have all a whole backpack of bad habits, of beliefs, superstition. And basically we have to unlearn a lot of things. We have to unlearn to hate ourselves. We have to unlearn to be angry with ourselves. We have to unlearn to judge ourselves. We have to unlearn to try to become a better person for whatever it is. We have to unlearn to try to become good enough. We have to unlearn to make ourselves less as what we really are. It's letting go. It's unlearning. We have to unlearn to be all the time sharp, because everything could happen at every moment. We have to unlearn to try to control the world around ourselves and to try to control ourselves. We have to unlearn that we have to know the truth. We have to unlearn the truth as something which is static. So I can go on for a long period. There's so many different things we have to unlearn. Can let go. They're not the answer. When we move back into the world or the dimension of the beloved, there is an awakening. We move out of fields of illusion. And one of the strongest illusions is the illusion that we are separate.
So, from what Bart's saying,
Sorry.
he gives a description from the place of the person of what the beloved is not. So maybe I can give a few pointers of where we can find the beloved. Just not places, but entrance points, entry points. The beloved is always here, unconditionally here. Here means it's in the familiar, it's in the intimate, it's in the normal, the known, what's normal, what feels normal. It's in the regular little things we take for granted. It's here. It's never somewhere else. So in allowing ourselves, all the different bits and pieces of whatever we are, to be here with what is, this is an entry point to the beloved. This is where the beloved is. It's never elsewhere. It's not in the Himalayas only. It's not in space. It's in all space. The beloved is always now. This is subtle because there is a great advantage in the third place of the beloved, which is if we stay, a third entry point, if we just stay and not run, not grasp, not distract, not push away, but just stay with discomfort, for example, the beloved is there. It's now. But the staying and patience, these qualities are very close to the timeless, to eternity. Patience is containing time, in the sense that we allow time to pass and we're in a stillness beyond that. That's the quality of patience, for example. When we're able to stay when something's uncomfortable, then we are anchored in something which is deeper and more powerful than any discomfort, the happening of a discomfort. This is all the depth of now. It's never later. It's never in a happening, an event, an occurrence. It's always now, from the space where everything happens. So the beloved doesn't happen because it doesn't have a past, a present, and a future. It's now. It means it can't be lost and it can't be won. It can only be allowed. The beloved is never a thought. We can have useful thoughts for undoing other thoughts to create space, to create silence. But it's always here in the space between thoughts. We talked now about the beloved not rejecting anything. But also, the beloved really doesn't care about accepting anything either. So while it's worthwhile to accept, we would look a bit silly like that in regular normal life, right? It's just like, hey, yeah, I accept it. You hit me, I accept. The polarity of rejection and acceptance is irrelevant to the beloved. It doesn't care about that, it cares about it all. It cares, unconditionally. There's nothing to accept. There's no question. It is. It's enough that it is, that there is a being. It's its own presence. The question of acceptance or rejection is irrelevant. That means that in the greatest trouble, the greatest pain, the greatest loss, sometimes there's an incredible sense of the beloved. In breakdown, in what looks like chaos, the beloved can become more apparent than ever. There is one way to look at the separate form, which is that we are all pots, moulded, crafted by the Creator in different forms. But there is another way, which is more the Kabbalistic way, which is that we are all broken splinters, broken uniquely. We're unique in our brokenness, and this is our form. And if you just throw a plate to the floor and then you throw another plate, you'll see complete unique pieces of plate in the brokenness. So the beloved is the light that comes through the breakage. It's not the bits and pieces. It's in the gaps between the splinters of who we are. The bits and pieces of physical sensations, the bits and pieces of experience, the bits and pieces of story, the bits and pieces of ambition. It's in the gaps between all that. And they become visible, these bits and pieces, because of the light of the beloved. So sometimes we can suddenly be horrified at what we see of ourselves, but actually it's because there's so much light there that we see it before it was hidden. That's why the message of rejection and acceptance is so important. Don't go into that polarity. If it is here, it's holy. It's a holy part of the beloved, whatever is. if you imagine that allow that the beloved is in the silence, you can imagine the ecstasy and exquisite beauty of one simple sound arising out of the silence.